Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sachs, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sachs.
Well, welcome everyone to another edition of Someone You Should Know. Glad to have you with us. And as always, this show is brought to you every week by Christine Dean, who is the DFW networking diva. Let me start over. DFWnetworkingdiva.com. That's Christine Dean. There she is, her beautiful face. She is an awesome lady. If you want help with your website, with marketing your business, with raising your business to the next level, go onto her website, contact her. You can even get a free consultation. Tell her you heard about it on Something to Talk About and Someone You Should Know. And she'll take good care of you. She's taking good care of me. She can do the same for you. Okay? Christine Dean. Thank you very much, Christine. I have a friend, not only a new friend that's a guest today, but he's also a friend of Christine Dean's too, because part of the DFW Veterans Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome Irving Chung to the broadcast this morning. Irving, welcome.
Hey, good morning, Stu.
Good to see you. Irving is in a fascinating business, and he helps people become their own boss. Basically, that's kind of the bottom line. Is if you ever said, I just hate working for a big corporation, I think I've got what it takes to be my own boss, franchising might just be the answer. And there is nobody that knows more about it. I'm going to pat you on the back, Irving, because I know you're in the DFW area, but this show goes nationwide, and you can help people nationwide. You know just about everything there is about franchising. And if anybody's got any questions, you're the man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I can consult with anybody in the country. I have access to thousands of franchises. And Stu, what's amazing is there's actually a franchise for literally anything you want to do. If you love pets and you want to do pet care, I got that. If you want to take care of seniors, I got that. You want to do essential service that's low risk, like HVAC, plumbing. I mean, everyone needs a plumber. I mean, I got that. You want to do something you're passion oriented, fitness, food. I got that. So absolutely.
I started researching a little bit. The list is absolutely endless. I mean, you can go from big franchises like auto dealerships, and all the way down to if you're just an independent bookkeeper and you want to just do bookkeeping from home, there's a franchise available for people that want to do that without huge cost and without a lot of equipment.
Absolutely. Stu, the most popular franchises these days are home-based businesses. And again, I'm not talking about someone who just wants to do a little bookkeeping. I mean, you can run a multi-truck pesticide service that can generate millions of dollars from your home, because it's a service business, right? So you're sending your techs out, you're managing operations from your home. You don't need an office space. You know what I'm saying? So, home-based businesses is a whole category that I have, and it's not just that little piddly company. It's actually, I have one guy who got into pesticide business 6 years ago in DFW. He owns 6 territories, which is pretty much all of Frisco, Plano, Dallas, Carrollton. He's got 18 trucks, and he's grossing in the millions. So,
okay. So now I'm thinking in my head, like I'm sure a lot of listeners are right now. They're saying, whoa, wait a minute. You say you just sit back and you run the business from your home, but you have to have a warehouse, a place where you store your trucks. You've got to have the equipment. You got to have the chemicals. Yeah. So there are overhead costs that you have to maintain.
Absolutely. So home-based business doesn't mean it's free. I mean, there's the old saying, right? It takes money to make money.
Right.
So there is an investment. I mean, home-based businesses are a little bit cheaper in that, you don't need a big office space to run the business. Actually, you need just to rent a parking lot. I mean, you go to a mass storage facility, they have parking spaces. it's pennies, right? It's really not expensive. It doesn't have to be a fancy part of town. Doesn't need to be a big, beautiful strip mall. It's hidden in the back. It's in a storage facility. You park your vans there. Your techs go there to pick up their truck, and you got a small storage bay to keep chemicals. So it's really a very low cost operationally. It doesn't mean you have no cost, right? I mean, there's always going to be a cost, but it's a fairly simple business.
But, if you're going to start a business, let me just throw something out there. Let's say you want to bake donuts.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to, any donut shop is going to have a certain amount of basic equipment. Yeah. So you either go out there and try and raise the capital to go out and buy that equipment. Now you got a long-term loan to pay it off and run your shop, or you go with a franchise that maybe will provide some of that equipment to you and you manage it and work on a profit sharing basis. Is that correct?
No, that's not.
Okay.
So there's a common fallacy. Everyone loves and they say, hey, I want to be a Chick-fil-A owner. And let me correct that. It's not a franchise. Chick-fil-A will charge you $10,000 for you to be the manager of their store. Now, granted, they'll build the store, but they're taking 50% of the profits and 30% royalties. So at the end of the day, you're paying them $10,000 to be the store manager to make 20% of profits. Now, Chick-fil-A makes a buttload of money, but you're not a franchisee. You're not an owner. At the end of it, they can kick you out at any time. And at the end of the term that you work there, you own nothing, right? So it's crazy because you're actually paying someone to be a manager. So as if I walked into McDonald's and say, hey, I want to be your manager. Here's $10,000. Can you hire me? I mean, it's crazy, right?
It's going to take you a while to get your $10,000 back.
Yeah. So it's a fallacy. Now, what the benefit of franchising is that you're buying an existing brand with a proven model, and you're buying an infrastructure such as a software system, a platform to run your business, right? You're working with an experienced management team. Usually it's run by a CEO or president with a VP of marketing, VP of operations, VP of sales. Now, they will have everything turnkey. They got the brand established. They got marketing plans established, right? So when you buy the rights to that business, you're actually owning that business. So you buy it for a certain period of time, 7 years, 10 years. Each franchise is a little bit different. And you buy into that. Now, when you run and own that business, you can sell it at any time, right? So it's yours to own. So not only are you generating income month to month when you run that business, right? And it all depends on how well you grow it. I mean, like anything, they're not going to grow it for you. Now they'll train you, they'll provide field support, right? And that's what you get. So like, for example, if I was like, hey, I want to get into business, I don't know what to do, right? You don't have to go and reinvent something, right? Now, all you got to do is work with someone like me. Now I'll get back to that in a minute. Or go directly to a franchise and say, yeah, I want to do this business. You don't have to figure out how to run that business. They'll train you on it. So for example, if you say, hey, I want to do plumbing because in my area, there's not a lot of plumbers and they're mom and pop plumbers, right? So, I hired a plumber a month. He postponed me 3 times. I called him up. I said, hey, don't we have an appointment today? Oh yeah, that's right. I had something come up. I'm sorry, I can't go. I'd call him, right? So I said, well, can you come tomorrow? I got to get this fixed. He said, oh, yeah, let me squeeze you in. I'll squeeze you in. You'll be my first appointment. 8 o'clock, next day rolls around. Guy doesn't show up, right? I mean, that's what you get with these mom and pops. Now, with a franchise, you're going to get a software that says, hey, Joe's confirmed for you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Hey, Joe is on his way. He'll be there in 15 minutes. Hey, Joe's there, And at the end of it, they'll send an email saying, hey, how'd everything go? Right? It's very professional, very polished, right? You'll have a routing software as the owner, and I'll see Joe driving to the appointment. I can see that on my routing software. If I got 10 appointments for Joe, the software is going to route them in the most efficient route, confirm those times with the customer. So it's a much more professional operation, and usually that gives you an edge. And then a lot of times you'll have some brand awareness in the market. So it's not Joe Schmo Plumber. It's, Blue Frog Plumbing, or, it's a brand name that you might be aware of, from other franchises in the area.
Well, for those that are watching and listening, wherever you are in the country, Irving has a website, bigconsideration.com. You can go to that website and all. And if you have questions, contact him and he'll answer the questions. He'll provide any information that you may want or need. And there will be a phone number at the website also. You mentioned something earlier that I want to go back to. This past year has been a very, very challenging year because of COVID. Have you found that maybe there's now a little bit of a spike in interest in people because of COVID? They lost their jobs, they got furloughed, and they say, wait a minute, I need to do something. Maybe I can do it on my own.
It's funny, Stu. I mean, the pandemic has really created crazy opportunity across the board. Now, it's come with hardship as well, right? But there's always two sides to every coin, and it's been incredible for small business owners and franchising. And let me tell you why. The first point you brought up was the obvious, right? I worked with several people this year, probably about 6, who got laid off, and were like really freaking out about what do I do, and business ownership is exactly. It's a great option, right? So a lot of people are like, hey, I've always wanted to own my own business. I'm sick of being accountable to somebody else. But the other audience that's surprisingly coming up, the people who kept their jobs, who are working from home. Now the office saying, hey, you got to come back to the office now, 3 days a week, 5 days a week. And when you get a taste of that freedom of not having to get up and punch a clock, commute, put that suit and tie on, get dressed, right? Yeah, seriously, you can work in your pajamas or your shorts, right? People are now freaking out. They're like, oh my gosh, I really got used to this. I really enjoy being home. I enjoy sitting with my dogs or being to spend more time with my kids, and those are the people too that I'm talking to recently that are like, what? I really got a taste of this independence. I want to work for myself. I want to stay home, that type of thing. And franchising will let you do that.
Yeah, and I want to spend a little bit of time today talking about everything from the big franchises that people that may have the cash to go into something big, or the opposite side is those that say, well, gosh, I'd love to have a franchise, but I only got X number of dollars to invest. Sure. There may be an opportunity there too. Yeah. So the guy who says, oh man, I think there's a lot of money to be made in fast food. I want to buy a fast food franchise. What would be the first step if I said to you, Irving, I think I want to have a fast food franchise, and I don't know whether to go to chicken or burgers or Chinese or whatever.
Right.
What's the first step that you have to go through?
Well, I think you touched on a good point. Let me bring up this point that there's 2 categories of businesses that I think about, right? One is called service-based businesses. The other one is called brick and mortar, right? So brick and mortar is anything where you build a retail location and they come to you. That includes fast food, that includes a gym, that includes some kind of retail boutique, right? That type of thing. Right. And that's going to be much more expensive. I mean, because you got to pick a real estate location, you got to build it out. Like you said about the restaurant, if you want to make donuts or have any kind of restaurant, you got to build, you got to, if you're lucky enough to have a place that's an existing restaurant space, that can reduce some cost. But for the most part, you want to pick the best location for it regardless, right? And most of the times you got to start with a clean slate. Now, a cleaning slate means that you go in and tear everything down to build it back up, right? That's going to cost you a high 6-figure. I mean, you're talking, you need to have access to anywhere from $350,000 to $1 million. And again, to own a McDonald's or a Subway's, that's over $1 million. It's an expensive endeavor. So my first question is, do you have the capital?
Right.
Now, there's lots of financial service options I can bring to the table. There's SBA loans. The SBA is one of the most generous funders, right? It's the government, Small Business Administration. And they're big on helping small businesses because that's a huge part of the economy. And they're willing to bank on American citizens to start their own business. And they're one of the few. You go to a commercial bank like a Bank of America and say, hey, I'm Stuart Sachs and I want to start a business. I got $10,000 and will you back me? And they're like, is this brand new? They're like, yeah, well, we can't help you. We need 2 to 3 years of positive cash flow and proof that your business is doing well before we lend you a dime, right? So SBA is one option. The other is a lot of people don't realize, but there's something called a rollover program, which allows you to invest your 401k in your business without penalty. And so a lot of people I work with, absolutely. So basically, the company you're starting, your own business, you can start as a C corporations, which you can sell stock for, and you buy the stock with your 401k, and you're buying it like you're buying Microsoft stock. So it's seen as a valid 401k investment, right? But you're investing in yourself. Now, the beauty of that is most of the times when you put your money in a 401k, you're getting 8 to 10% maybe over a 10 plus year period. It's a long-term slow growth, right? So if you start a franchise, when you look at the economics of that, a lot of times your growth is going to be 20, 30, 40% year over year as you grow that business. So your ability to grow your revenue, generally, if you look at the pro forma and some of the projections, is going to be higher, than the stock market, right? That's a slow, steady. Whereas when you start a business, it's actually fairly rapid, right? In comparison, right? You're not talking 10 years necessarily, but anyway. So there's a lot of financial options, right, available to you to get to that level of capital investment. On the other hand, service businesses are a fraction of the cost. I'd say maybe the most you're spending for a single territory might be $150. And there's something called an SBA Express loan that will lend you up to $150. And like when you buy a house, they only require about a 12% investment on your part. So all you need is about $15,000 in capital to get a $150,000 loan to fund that business. Now, with that said, the government's willing to back you, but you got to have good credit. You can't have huge amounts of debt. You can't have bankruptcy. They're still going to be somewhat savvy to say, hey, is Stewart going to be a good investment for us? You know what I mean? Someone who has decent credit, shows that they're responsible, that type of thing. So there are some financial requirements, but you don't need all that money, right? You can borrow it. Now, if you don't want to have debt, you can use that 401k. You can use home equity loans. There's a lot of other options, or save up,
It's fascinating. And folks, just from this conversation, Irving knows what he's talking about. So rather than you sitting and Googling, listen, I think I'd like to franchise something. How can I invest $10,000 into a franchise? Call somebody who knows, who's your partner. And am I correct that your work is no cost?
Yes. So as a franchise consultant, there's a couple things. One is I'm objective third party, right? I'm not here selling any franchises in particular. I'm not here to force anybody into a particular business. I'm here to be a consult to you, to educate you on what franchising is all about, how it works, and more importantly, what's available. Because not every franchise is a good franchise, right? You got some that are brand new who are just starting out, and it might be a low investment, let's say $10,000, but all you get is an instruction book. You don't get a lot of support, you don't get a lot of software, you don't get a lot of stuff, and you're like, great, good luck, here's an instruction book. Yeah. And then you got more mature ones and ones that are actually more sophisticated that have built out electronic, web and software infrastructure, operating systems, protocol, training, in-field support, bulk sales, all that stuff, right? So part of what I do too is I work with people to help them understand, what companies are available, which ones are some of the best to consider. And then I work with them to consult on their background, right? What do you have a passion for? What do you have interest in? What do you have skill set for? What was your past job and what's your experience? Who's your influence base, customer base, things like that to help you leverage kind of all your past experience to get you into that right business that's going to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you've got a background in the insurance business or something, but you love donuts, you may not be cut out to start a donut franchise. You might be better off starting an H&R Block.
Yeah, yes and no, right? So Stewart, here's the beautiful thing about franchising is, and people don't know this, Franchisors love it when franchisees have no background in their business. The reason being is they want to train you to do it their way. So if you were a plumber and you buy a plumbing business and you say, well, I never did it that way, all you are is friction to the system, right? So the most common question I get, people say, hey, what makes a franchisee fail? I said, not following the system. When you think about a franchise, you're buying an existing system that's mature, tested, and works. So if the guy in North Carolina can run a business and make 300 grand a year, right, doing it, well, why can't I do it here in Grand Prairie? Right? That's the logic of it. Now, if you follow the plan, it's like being a football coach, right? If someone gives you a playbook that says, hey, I've won 6 Super Bowls with this playbook, you follow this playbook, you get your team to follow it, you're gonna win championships. Now, granted, the players are critical part of it, right? All that stuff. But why would you sit there and say, hey, let me go make up my own plays, right? Run those plays. They're proven, they're tested. Get your guys to do it and get them to run it with excellence, right? That's what you got to do. So you hire people, you train them and say, you know what, do a good job and do it with courtesy, gratitude, thank the customer. You train them, train them to be your, I mean, that's a good analogy for like why.
Well, like you said, if you follow that playbook has already been successful. So the old phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly.
The thing is, as you used a championship team for an example, the players are the key to the success there too, because while the playbook may work, you've got to have the right people that are working with you, and use that playbook in order to get the right people to run your business.
Yeah. I mean, that's true with any business, right? Even a corporation, right? Sometimes in a corporation, they'll just give you people. You don't have a choice. Hey, you're working with Al, Bob, and Susie. That's your team. Well, they're horrible. Why am I working with them? Right now, you're stuck with that, right? Because you're in a corporation. Now, the beautiful thing about running your own business is you're doing hiring, right? So I have a motto. I tell people, hire slow, fire fast. I mean, if they're not working good, well, get rid of them. You can't afford to have your own business be brought down by someone who's like not showing up for work, someone who's getting customers angry, someone who's not completing the job well. I mean, let them go and move on to the next guy.
So it's probably good advice to hire people with a trial period and let everybody know. Let's see how it, I mean, I used to do this. I was in the retail business with my wife for 40 years. And generally when we hired somebody, we'd say, look, why don't we try this for 30 days or 60 days? And then let's reassess, because you know what? We may not like you, but you may not like us.
Exactly.
So let's just go into it and have this courtship, and then determine if it's a good fit.
And also some good due diligence, right? Do a background check references, interview multiple times, get several opinions, have you and your wife interview them, say, hey, you know what? I kind of got a funny feeling about this guy, but take a look and you see, tell me what you think, right? Just basic good practice. Now, the other beautiful thing is a lot of franchisors will help you with staffing. They'll have job description set, they'll have a relationship with recruiting firms, and basically a lot of times they'll find people, send them your way to say, hey, Stu, we want you to make the final decision. Obviously, you're the owner, but we lined up 5 people for you. We checked their backgrounds already. We heard, they're qualified, that type of thing.
In the information that I studied, you have a breakdown of different types of franchises, and one of those you mentioned is a semi-absentee franchise. Where somebody says, "Oh yeah, I like that. I can be the boss, but I don't have to be there running the business."
That's right. So let me tell you that's like the way I talk about that is ownership models, right? There's a variety of ownership models. So there's owner operator, where you're going to be in the business running it. Now, again, what I emphasize to people is if it's a plumbing business, I really don't want you to be the technician under the sink. I want you to be the owner, the manager, managing the business from a macro point of view, thinking big picture. How much should I spend in marketing, right?
Right.
make sure customer service is good. Make sure training is good. Make sure I got supplies ordered. Make sure, hey, I got a big weather front coming in. I got, let me plan around this, right? Think strategically. Think growth. How do I grow my customers so I make more money, and grow my business, right? That's what you should be doing. That's an owner operator is when they're working in the business. Usually it's a general manager, owner, that type of thing. Maybe do some sales, maybe do some customer service calls, things like that. But it's your choice as the owner. Then if you want to own multiple territories, right, and that's how you grow. The beautiful thing about franchising is you can exponentially grow your revenue by adding more territories, and you can do it incrementally. So if I own North Dallas and in a year I'm successful, I can go and buy Plano. And then if that's successful, I can go buy Frisco. And what happens is your empire grows. That's called an executive owner, right? And because you're owning multiple territories. And it's, I don't know if you have kids, Stu, but when you have the first kid, you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. How am I going to handle this? And then you have your second, you're like, oh, I got this. This is not a big deal. And then you pop out a third, you're like, yeah, that's not a big deal either. So it's almost like running a business, right? When you have one, the first one's like, oh my God. Once you learn it, it's like adding another territory. It's just adding another group of employees. That is like, okay, one more, two more employees, boom. Now you're managing, instead of 4 employees, you're managing 8 employees. Not a big deal because it's the same business.
And that's true when you're in a retail situation, because when you have one business, there's a certain amount of investment that you have to put in order to keep that one location going. When you have 2 or 3 or 4 locations and you go into the market, it's just as easy to buy for 4 locations as it is to one.
That's right.
And the upside is that maybe the goods that you put into all 4 locations, it's selling better in location 4 than it is in location 1. You could move your goods.
Now, let me talk about semi-absentee, which is another category. Semi-absentee means that it's a manager-run business, which means that you're just doing a fraction of the work. They're doing the majority of the work. And in average, a semi-absentee means you're spending 20 hours a month, right? Now, for example, I own an indoor cycling studio. So not only am I a franchise consultant, I'm a franchisee. So I understand what it's like to run a business. I consult on, hey, what was it like to move from corporate to business owner mindset? And it's a transition. But it's a semi-absentee business. I have a manager running it. I have a lead instructor teaching. I'm never in there unless I take a class. So I kind of consider myself a super user because I go in, I ride, 3-4 days a week. And when I'm there, I'll talk to the employees. I make sure it's clean. I make sure the instruction is good because I'm taking the class. I'm looking at it with a really cynical eye and a critical eye. And I'll go to the bathrooms and I'll check to make sure they're clean and I do all that stuff. So, but all my real work is done at home. I get up in the morning, I look at the dashboard to see how much revenue I've gotten, how many customers do I have coming in. I do management meetings every week with the manager, but I'm really not there opening the doors at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm not shutting the door at 8:30 at night. That's called semi-absentee. And the beauty of it is you can usually run it while keeping your day job. I mean, I'm a franchise consultant is my day job. I mean, that's what I do 9 to 5.
Now, so another thing is another category is emerging brands. I mean, everybody says if I'm going to go into franchising, I want to buy a McDonald's. I want to buy, Chick-fil-A because they're already established. People already know who they are. But it's like investing in the stock market. If there is an initial public offering, getting in on the ground floor, you may end up, you could end up being a big hero because the brand goes through the roof. But is that a riskier? Let me talk about emerging brands a little bit, right? So the real risk to existing businesses is the fact that it's probably sold out already in your territory. Right. True. So I look around, I'm like, I check a rock and I'll hit a fast food place. So there's enough McDonald's around. I don't need one. So most of the time it's about a mature brand being already bought in your neighborhood, in your area. And, you can work remotely. So some businesses you can own. I have a gal who owns 13 restoration businesses in Oklahoma, pretty much owns all of Oklahoma, but she lives in Dallas.
right? So you can own a business out of state. It's not ideal. You want to be able to be in the business when you
Well,
want
like you
to.
said, you want to be able to check the
You
restrooms and
want to
make
be able to
sure
check
they're
things
clean. Yeah.
out, make sure that things are, up and up. But the thing about emerging brands too is you can be first to market. That's the beauty of it. And a lot of times it'll be territory available. Now, again, being first to market has its risks. You don't have. So, for example, our oldest franchise is Meineke Muffler. They've been around for 60 years. There's 600 franchises. I can go back and I got all the data in the world to say, hey, I know how much 600 franchisees made over 60 years. So when they say, hey, your average revenue is going to be X, you have a pretty good confidence level that those numbers are accurate. Now, with an emerging brand, you might be maybe the first of 10 franchisees who open up. Now, the beauty of being the first too is the corporate entity, the franchisor, is going to be super attentive to you. I mean, it's kind of like having your first baby. They're going to be overly cuddling you.
Your success is their success.
Absolutely. They're not going to want the first 10 to fail. So a lot of times you get a lot of extra support, a lot of extra freebies. Like I got this one business that does installation and they're a phenomenal business. They built a whole internal team to call contractors on your behalf because they want to explore that as a potential sales revenue and avenue for you. So they invested in a team that's going to do the work on your behalf. So when you open your business, they're going to say, hey, we lined up these 5 contractors for you to do business with because they're experimenting with it. So they don't want to charge you for it. I bet you in about 5 years from now, they're going to be charging for that service.
I want to touch on another area. In growing up, my wife and I occasionally went to franchise what they call expos.
Yeah.
It's usually at a local convention center or something.
Yeah.
And what you said earlier was the fact that every booth that you go to at an expo, they are the best in their field. And you cannot fail. And that's why right at the top of the show, I said, if you got questions, contact somebody like Irving because the pitfalls.
Let me tell you this. So I go to expos and I actually exhibit there, right? And I love them because there's a saying, right? To a hammer, everything is a nail, right? So you go to a booth and say, hey, I love that taxi business. Is it a good business? Oh yeah, it's the best business there's to be in. You go to the pizzeria next door. You say, hey, how's the pizza business? Oh my gosh, never been better. You got the roof. Pizzeria through the roof, right? Who doesn't eat pizza, right? So the thing is, they're going to pitch you like that, right? Now, the other thing about franchise expos is that it only represents 1% of what's available.
Really?
Oh yeah. So you walk around and you look at it, you see maybe 50 franchises, right? There's over 3,500 franchises out there, and the mature ones don't even need to go to an expo because they have the awareness already. So a lot of ones in the expo are kind of emerging brands, right? They're the newer ones. They're the ones who, really don't have a big reputation and are trying to build themselves up. Things like that. So I'd say it's great to go just to kick some tires and go talk to people and see what's around. But it really is, when you're serious about looking at a franchise, work with a consultant because, again, my fees are free. I kind of work like, people are like, oh, why? How do you do that? I'm kind of like a real estate agent, right? If I want to go buy a house in, Frisco, an agent's, a real estate agent is not going to charge me to go look around for some houses. Right. They're going to say, hey, what are you looking for? I want a 4-bedroom. Do you want a pool or not? What school, do you have school age kids? Do you want to be in walking distance from school? You give them your parameters. They'll show you 5 or 6 houses, right? And it cost you nothing. But when you buy one, right, their job is to find you that perfect house. When you find that perfect house, then they get paid. That's how I work, right? So my goal here is to educate you, show you some options, and if you like them and you get excited, great. And if you don't, you say, you know what, this is not for me, great. But, if you do end up going forward with one, then I get compensated.
Folks, it's free.
Yeah, right.
The consult is free. You just have to have the idea, the desire, and
Even a
contact
curiosity.
me.
Just a curiosity.
Bigconsideration.com, and you can get questions answered. What are some, since you said they're up and coming, so I don't want to pay six figures to get a franchise that already exists, but there's this small town that's a half an hour from where I live, and there seems to be growth moving in that direction. We see it here in North Texas. It's growing towards the Oklahoma border.
Yeah.
So how about if I want to put a franchise or so into Gunther or Melissa or some of these small communities?
Yeah.
What are some of the up and coming new emerging companies that you have on your books?
Well, there are a couple of things. Like I mentioned, there's there's a great pet grooming business that just came on to ours, and they have like a membership type basis. So I mean, in Texas, I've never met more people with dogs than in Texas. I mean, I lived in San Francisco, I lived in Wisconsin, I lived in New York, and you come here, and I'd say probably like 90% of households have a dog. Great pet grooming business. I got a great insulation business. Again, like the thing about Texas is we get really hot summers, and I tell you, those electric bills are like doozies, right? In the summer, you're like, oh my gosh, you're paying $600 a month, depending on the size of your house. You're like, holy cow, and then the winters are cold enough. I mean, this winter was ridiculous, right? And you got the heat cranking, you got, so you're going to feel the breeze. You're going to feel that. Insulation is a huge business, and that's an emerging brand coming out.
I see information on the net and advertising that the solar panel business and also the wind generated energy business and also seems to be gaining some momentum.
Yeah. So, no, there's tons. I mean, there's certainly no shortage of businesses with emerging technologies, things like that.
Well, as you said, 3,500 franchises out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I think we should establish the fact that if you want to go into franchising, one thing you have to make sure that you're aware of is you have to have the ability to fail.
Yes.
That not every investment is going to work, but don't overextend yourself.
That's an interesting point, Stuart. There's no sure bet, right? When I say why franchising, I say to people, when you franchise, it's the closest thing to a crystal ball that you ever get to business ownership, right? But it tells you the past, not the future, right? So it's like, if you want to start a business, you say, hey, I want to start a tire business. Everyone, their tires roar out. I want to, you got to go and source the manufacturers. You got to figure out what's the operating procedure. So how do I change the tire fastly and safely? You got to figure out all of that. Half of your time is spent figuring out how to do the business versus doing the business.
Right.
With a franchise, how to do the business is all figured out for you. All you got to do is run the business. That takes 50% of the responsibility off your plate. Now, you own a retail store. Now, if you didn't buy a franchise, you had to figure out, well, how do I display it? What display should I buy, right? What fashion do I need to buy? What, where do I source? Where do I, how do I merchandise? How do I mark things down? How do I manage pricing? How do I do, you got to figure out every bit of that. In a franchise, they give you the game plan. They give you the operating manual. They give you, this is the seasonality. This is what you can expect this season. This is what you can expect this time of year. This is what you can expect, right? So I have another business that's gangbusters, is a pesticide business. I mean, there's no shortage of bugs and rodents and birds and whatever. And the beauty of it is they can tell you, this is what you can expect in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Here's how you plan. Here's how you buy supplies. I mean, you're not figuring any of that out. You're following the game plan and you're executing, based on the season, based on, what's proven,
Well, you mentioned the pesticide business. I mean, that can be run anywhere. You can be located anywhere. It just depends on the service area.
That's right. That's one of the simplest businesses. Here's why. You got one technician, you got one truck, right? and they can cover X number of miles. Once their schedule is full, right? You add one more tech, one more truck. Now you can let the technician take the truck home. So, depending on how you want to run the business, you don't even need to rent a space, right? Now, if you want to rent a space, you rent the space near where they live in the territory that you service in the center, right? Now, here's the other thing is, pesticides not that expensive, right? When you think about a sprayer, 99% of that is water. 1% of its specs is pesticide. Now, it's not cheap stuff, but when you think about that proportion, 99 to 1, right? And each, spraying is maybe 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes appointment at most between getting from house to house. And like I talked about, a lot of these franchises have routing software. So you type in your customer base. I got 10 visits today. Boom, boom, boom. It'll tell you exactly how to maximize that guy's day. And that's it. A lot of times sales are done over the phone. They'll call and say, hey, I have an issue. Well, what's your issue? I got bed bugs. Okay, great. It'll cost you X amount. You don't even need to go visit. Hey, I got a mosquito problem. Great. Here's the plan. Here's what we do. We can offer you spraying 3 times a week for $69, right? Hey, I got some squirrels in my attic. Oh, not a problem. It'll cost you X amount. We'll have a guy out there to go trap them, and then we'll seal up the holes. I mean, sales are done over the phone. The marketing is done for you from a franchisee. So a lot of it's digital these days, Facebook ads, Google search ads, SEO ads. So the pipeline's coming into the call center. A lot of the franchisors have call centers. So really all you're doing is just dispatching a technician.
With something you mentioned earlier, you said that for instance, in the pesticide business, you let the technician take the truck home. Okay.
Sure.
That's advertising.
That's right.
That's part of your marketing. I have a gentleman that lives around the corner from me that's in the pool service business.
Yeah.
His truck is parked out there from every day. So all the traffic that goes by sees the name of the pool company that he represents.
The phone number's on there. The website's on there. Boom. Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. What do you see as the future of franchising? Do you see more people getting into franchising and getting into smaller franchise businesses?
Yeah, it's funny. It's in my experience, it's the best known secret. It's because most people, when they think franchise, they think McDonald's and Subways. And let me tell you, those are rough businesses. The reason why is because you're spending a lot of money to build them. Right? I mean, sometimes over $1 million to build it. So who's got $1 million? You got to have a staff of like 30 people because you're open 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And your margins are small. You got to sell like 3,000 hamburgers a day to make $1. Now, granted, a lot of people eat a lot of hamburgers and all that stuff, but it's a lot of work. I mean, even as a semi-absentee owner, it's a lot of supplies to worry about. It's a lot of
turnover of help.
A lot of turnover of help. When you think about that compared to the pesticide business, where I'm making $69 a pop, or for a rodent issue, it's $200, $250, right? I got 1 technician, maybe 5 at most if I have a big territory. I mean, I'd rather manage 5 technicians than 30 part-time high school kids, who don't show up for work. You know what I mean? You're talking 5 professionals who, it's their living. They're serious about it. They're mature adults. And I got to order some pesticide, not a big deal. A couple of traps versus every week I got to order hundreds of hamburger and buns. And if I misorder, I'm short on food. If I overorder, I got waste. Right? So there's a lot of simpler businesses out there.
Folks, I mean, we could spend more hours. There's so many things that you do, Irving, too, that we didn't have time to talk about. I know you work a lot with veterans.
Yes.
You have commented that sometimes veteran franchisees do sometimes 25% better than most.
Absolutely.
Because they're disciplined.
Yeah, that's right. So the military is one of the number 1 franchises in the world. It's the Department of Defense. Right. And,
Right.
and you come in and say, hey, they don't ask you, hey, do you know how to fire a gun? Hey, do you know hand-to-hand combat? Hey, do you know how to follow orders and are you disciplined? No, they're going to break you down, put you in boot camp. They're going to teach you the way they want to teach you, right? Same thing with a franchise. They don't want to come in and say, hey, are you a plumber? Hey, do you know how to do billing? Hey, do you know how to do payroll? Hey, no. They're going to say, come on in. If you have the enthusiasm, the basic intelligence and the willingness to learn, come on in. We'll do a boot camp. You're going to be, you're going to be ready to run this business by the end of this week, end of this month. They have different programs. Sometimes they'll come into market and do an in-market mentoring with you. So veterans are exactly, they're perfect. And plus most franchises offer a great veteran discount. So, yeah.
You met very briefly. Gosh, I can't believe how the time has flown. You had mentioned, for instance, the pesticide business.
Yes.
The office can be in your home. It could be anywhere.
Absolutely.
The guy that wants to open up a nail salon, or he wants to open up a little corner donut shop, or so. Do the franchisors also help them with the location?
Absolutely. So here's the thing about, again, when I talk about why franchising, right? You got a full company behind you, right? What they're going to do is you're going to do a demographic analysis of the area you want to get into. Like, for example, if you want to do senior care, they're going to find out what the population of people over 60 are.
Sure.
You're right. They're not going to go to a community with a bunch of 20, 30-year-olds. They're going to do a demographic analysis and say, yeah, this is a good market for you to be in, or it's not a good market to be in. And then they're going to look for locations specifically by zip code or by address, and they're going to definitely help you. They're going to give you blueprints for the building. They're going to give you contractors that they've worked with, architects that they've worked. I mean, it's turnkey. I mean, basically, because they want the brand to be consistent. They want one, shop to look like the next shop, within kind of the confines of that space you found.
So retirement community would not be necessarily advisable in a college town.
Exactly, right? Seniors in a college town may not be a good thing.
Folks, Irving Chung is the man. If you've got any questions whatsoever about franchising, get in touch with Irving. He'll answer your questions. If he doesn't have the answer, he'll get it, or he'll tell you where to go to get it. But if you even have the slightest idea of about maybe I have X number of dollars that I can invest, and maybe a franchise is the way to go, I suggest you call Irving and ask the questions. He's there to help you.
100%.
Irving, thank you very, very much for taking the time to be with me. I think we're going to have to do this again because I got too many more questions that I never got to ask. Whenever you want, Stu. This was so much fun. I love talking to you. And most of all, I love helping people. So, I certainly invite everyone to give me a buzz, give me a ring. Happy to jump on the phone for a quick conversation. But Stu, please let me know when the next time we can talk together. Very good. Irving Chung, everything you ever want to know about franchising, okay? Contact him. And then also put on your calendar to be right here again next week, same time, same place, for another show of Someone You Should Know. And remember, as I always say, go out there and be yourself, because everyone else is taken. Bye.